Hello and welcome back to another art class. Today we're going to start a new project, and this project is going to have to do with radial design and radial balancing. As you can see here in our first photo here, radial design has to do with a design where everything is going out in one different direction, kind of exploding out from the center, or radially, kind of like the radius of a sun, the rays going off in different directions. With radial balance and radial design, you often see it in different areas. Here you see in propellers. Next slide will be wheel spokes. If you took the wheel spokes away, the tire would not stay as a circle as you rode it. Nature uses it as well, not only for animals but for plants too. Flowers follow that particular pattern. It's just something that's seen very common and you don't always know that it has a name. Now this particular item here doesn't look like it would be radial design or radial balance, but when you look through it, it becomes a radial balance, radial design. And this leads naturally to my next image here, which is of what's called a rose window, and you can see the lines going in different directions, kind of exploding out from the center. Even though the little images are a little bit different, it's still balanced all the way around. And even in this image here that you're seeing, there are radial balance for those props for the Titanic. And now on to the project. Now that we've discussed radial design, we're going to create our own radial design project. And so you're going to need a few things. You're going to need 2 pieces of paper. You're going to need a large stencil. So I'm going to use a pot lid because it is going to fit really good, and I'll explain how this fits on later. You're going to need a pencil, a straight edge ruler works fine, eraser will probably be handy, and you're going to need a little bit of glue. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to need to do is glue the 2 pieces of paper together, because we need it to be fairly large, because it just makes it easier to do some of the drawing of this project. And we're going to want it to overlap about a finger space. And then we're going to glue them together. Now as we glue, this is one of those cases where dot dot not a lot, when you learned when you were a little kid, is kind of important, because you do not want the glue to really ooze out at all. And so what I'm going to do is I put a few dots on there, and I'm going to carefully spread it out, because you notice I closed the nozzle there so that it's not leaking out as I work. So I want this to be really thin glue. Then I'm going to overlap it, like I said, for about a finger space. So use my finger to maybe just a smidge more. I'm going to line it up as best I can, top and bottom, so they're nice even edges. So basically I'm just making one large piece of paper. And then my suggestion is you come back to this in about maybe half an hour to an hour after it's dried. You really don't want to work on this while it's wet. Okay. My paper is now dry, and what I'm going to do now is I actually need it to be a square. And obviously this is kind of a rectangle. So in order to do that, I'm going to take one corner, and I'm going to fold it over diagonally here. And I'm going to line up my edges as best as I can. Like so. And I'm going to put a little crease in it so it stays in place. I'm going to use my pencil, and I am going to just trace the edge on where it goes. So now I have this nice clean line here. That will allow me to, actually, I guess we're going to need one other item, a pair of scissors, because we need to make a little bit of trim. Take the time. Let's stay on the line. Okay. You can just hold on to this scrap piece of paper. It might be useful for later to try some things out. So just put it off to the side. Okay. Next, what I want to do is fold the paper in half like a, well, kind of like a book. Like that. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to fold it in half going the other way. So now I have a fold going this way. I turned my paper a little bit so I can fold it to go this way. Line it up as best you can with the cut side there. Put a little trace in there. And now you know exactly where the middle is. What I'm going to do with that is I will put a little dot just so it's kind of easy to know where the middle is. Next, this is where your pot lid comes in. Okay. Mine, when I set it in here, is a little bit smaller than the paper, which is realistically what I really need. I don't want it to be just as big, and I don't want to do something like a small plate like this where I have tons of space left over. So you may have to search through your house. A plate might work. A big lid like what I have. This is a pot lid that I'm using to get a good size on this. Then you need to center it in the best possible way in the middle. Okay. So I should have about a finger space on each side, I think. Yep. Okay. And then I'm going to trace this. Under normal circumstances, if it was an everyday class, we would actually be doing this with a compass. So this is a kind of a fun way to do this at home, because not everybody carries a compass at home. Okay, so there's my big circle. Well, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to trace the circle a couple more times. We're going to start getting our radial design, because remember, it's got to go the same in every direction. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the lid, and one of the reasons why we did the middle was I'm going to go off to the side here, and I'm going to line up the lid with the dot so that I can trace half the circle like this. Then next I'm going to turn my paper, so you see a half circle. What I'm going to do is this. I am going to line up my dot. Now it's not going to be just on the other side. That's not what we're doing. Notice I'm going to try to line up with this piece right here. Okay, and the dot that's right there. So I'm going to back a little bit. And I'm going to trace it. As long as you're pretty close. I wasn't right on the dot, but it was close. So now you can see that I kind of have like this little fish shape. Then I'm going to turn my paper. And now it should connect this one here, the middle, and this one here. Like so. Right? So now if you look, there's it's kind of like a propeller now, so it's kind of going in each direction. Next, I'm going to repeat this process. I'm going to repeat it all over again. This time I'm going to go the other direction. So I'm going to line it up. Half of it will be on the page, half of it won't. Now this is a part you may want to re-watch a couple times and pause and watch it 2 or 3 more times as you're doing it. Okay, so there's that. Then I'm going to line it up with this one and the dot. So I'm going to kind of get it into place. Like that, get my fingers kind of to be where it stops. There it goes. And trace it. And I get my little fish shape. See? Little fish shape. And now to connect these. Okay, like that. That part is tricky enough as it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave it there, and I want you to work on getting it to this spot where you can get the 6 pieces. Now, if you notice, the spacing is not 100% equal, and it's about as close as we can get without using an actual compass to move things around. What you'll do then is you'll take a picture of this and you will send it to me so I can kind of make sure they're working out. Is it okay if you have to flip it over and restart? Yeah, that's no problem. So just if you have any issue, just remark the middle and then restart. Draw light until you get it right. There will be erasing, so just take your time, try not to be frustrated. I will go over how to finish the rest of the design later, and the next part next week there will be a little bit more variety in what you can do. I just want us to get to this part where we have the 6 kind of petal shapes. Okay? Do not just hand draw them in. I'm going to look for the tracing. Okay? If you need to, pause the video, re-watch it, or watch part of it, pause it, do what it shows you, and then come back to the video. That's what the videos are for, is so that you can watch them as many times as you need. All right, we'll see you next week.